Hello, Java Challenger. I have here Loiane Groner. So Loiane is a director of engineering of BNY. She's a Java champion. She's also a Google developer expert in Angular. She is a Microsoft MVP and an Oracle Ace. She has over 18 years of experience in the software development industry, focusing mostly on Java and JavaScript. She has an excellent YouTube channel with more than 150K subscribers as well. She wrote 10 books focused on JavaScript and the fundamentals of software engineering. She's currently living in Orlando, and one of her favorite hobbies is running on Disney, which is amazing. So, Loiane, you're very welcome to be here. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. How are you?
Hey, Rafa. Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here talking to you and doing really well. How about you?
Very good. It's an honor for me. It's an honor for me as well, for sure. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about your career, and we can also discuss some of the career lessons you learned, and I think that will be very useful for the Java Challengers audience. And I'm always curious to know about the career trajectory from the Java experts I have here. So I'd like to know more about your career trajectory, Loiane.
Okay. Well, I first of all, when I was like a teenager, you starting to try to decide what you're gonna be when you grow up.
Oh
I
yeah.
actually wanted to be a lawyer,
Oh,
like nothing related to engineering. But in Brazil, when we have something, there's a little bit similar to the SATs in the US, right? So you take the test that has all the questions about history, geography, physics, math, and my favorite subjects at school were always math and physics. And I say, I think there's something wrong here. I do like history, geography, but I wasn't very interested in memorizing all those dates. So I decided to switch to something related to more STEM. So let me pick one major, because in Brazil we have to choose our major before we actually apply to college. And okay, I always like computers. Let me just apply for a computer science program. So I completed my computer science program. I knew nothing about algorithms. And I kind of, started to like as the years gone by in university. And I was able to get my first job as well when I was still in the university. And I was living back then in Vitoria, which is from my home state in Brazil, Espírito Santo. And after I graduated from college, I was able to get a job in São Paulo and was at IBM back then. So I moved to São Paulo, stayed 2 years in IBM in Hortolândia.
mhm.
And after that, I had another opportunity to actually move to São Paulo, the capital. This is when I joined Citibank.
Nice.
So I worked for 7 years in Citibank. I've started as a senior Java developer back then, and I had the opportunity to wear a lot of different hats, like a project manager, business analyst, tech lead, staff engineer, team lead, up to the point that I became like people manager as well, learning a lot about the business, about the product as well. And there was an opportunity for me to move from São Paulo to here, Florida. So I took that opportunity. I moved to Tampa, stayed there for like 4 years. And most recently, I had the opportunity to join BNY. So here I am.
Amazing. So you mentioned some things that are interesting to me. So you mentioned that you changed roles. So you went from project manager to team lead to people manager. They're very different roles. How did you manage that?
I'm always curious, right, about things and trying to do new things. And if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my career is you need to have your goals, like your medium term, short term, long term goals, but things can always change, right? You never know when you're going to get a good opportunity. And I always like to say yes to good opportunities. You never know where you're going to end up to. So having the opportunity to wear different hats, to go through different roles, allow me to learn about different perspectives. Because when you think about technology, it's not only about coding, right? There's a lot of things that are involved in it when it comes to product development, software development itself. And by wearing all those different hats, it allowed me to learn all the different perspectives, right? From being a software engineer to actually manage a product, to be an application manager, to actually learn the entire life cycle of a product, to know how much infrastructure costs, how much it is costing, all the decisions that we as developers we make, about roadmaps and product development as well. Worked as a BA that actually helped me to learn more about the business. And I think this is key a key learning for me, because sometimes when we talk about career development, we're always, okay, you have to learn Java. Now you have to learn about the latest functionalities. Now you have to learn about system design. Now you have to learn about architecture. And then we talk about all the soft skills that we need to have as well. But we rarely talk about the domain knowledge, which is something that is key for anybody working in the industry. It can actually help you to take to the next level. And for me, this was when I actually realized that, it really changed the growth that I was, having within my career.
Yeah, you mentioned something crucial for anyone to grow in any company. And throughout my career, I noticed that the business domain knowledge is the most important knowledge for developers. Like technology ends up becoming like not, it is important, but it's kind of a second importance level for a company. And understanding the business is very hard. Like it's something that you can only learn when you are in the company. There's no course, there's nothing else you can learn more about the business. And I would like to know, what is your approach to learn more about the business? Because I know this is crucial for any developer who wants to go to the next level in their careers.
Yeah. And again, I think we just have to differentiate, right? Because from the experience that I have, I've always worked in companies that were not big techs, where technology is not the first actor, right? So I think when you work in companies where they are driven by technology is one thing, but that's just my experience where technology is a way to empower the business, right? So one of the things that always help me is to new to a product, if you're new to a team, it's actually get your hands into the system itself, right? Sometimes you're very focused on what's the ticket that you're getting, like what's the new screen that you have to create, or the new field that you have to add to that screen, or make a small change. But it really helps to understand why you are doing that. So if you have to add a new field to a screen, or a new column to a report, why is that's important? How that's going to make a difference to the business users? What's the value that's actually adding to the product, to the business? So I think starting with these questions when you are getting that ticket, like add a new field here to this particular screen, that's a good start. And actually exploring the entire system, getting to know the system, becoming that SME, the subject matter expert into the system. And the other important thing is actually talking to the business users, because you can actually learn a lot from them. They are the ones that are using the day-to-day system, and ask them, how do their day-to-day look like? What are they actually doing? What's the process looks like from their side? And if it's possible, depending on the domain area that you are, it is possible to learn a little bit about from books, right? Or any kind of like online courses as well. So always ask. It doesn't hurt to ask and try to learn a little bit more. That has been my kind of like go-to recipe that I've been using throughout the years.
What courses or books would you recommend for developers to understand to have at least kind of a macro view of a business flow? Is there such a thing or
I don't think there is such a thing. I think the key thing here is to be curious about it. I think you have to be like a 3 years old. Why this? Why that? And actually try to make sense out of it. In some domain knowledges, right? If you're working like for healthcare, you can draw from your own experience. Like if you have to use like your healthcare provider, how does the process look like? Or if you are building a system for a doctor's office, how does that look like? How the doctor is actually using that information? What are we doing with that information once that's saved in the system? Or if you're working for like a finance industry, then you have many different domains within the finance industry as well. Same thing, if you're working with education, how does that look like? And I think this is one privileged place where we are as software engineers, where we can actually work within any kind of domain, right? It's a very privileged place to be because you have your knowledge as a software engineer and you can actually learn about other industries as well.
and what do you do if you don't have access to the users? Because this is very common in most companies, especially when it's a big company. You usually don't talk to the final user. In that case, what do you think is the best approach to learn about the business?
If you have like a product owner, talk to the product owner because that person should have a pretty good overview about the systems, right? That can be a good start. If you are working with a business analyst, that can also be a second approach. The other thing is that if the product owner or the business analyst is actually doing the talking with the business, you can always ask, for example, to join the meetings as a listener, right? You don't talk, at least you get the opportunity to hear from the business perspective as well. And again, any kind of like user manual, any kind of email exchange that sometimes might happen when you are just finalizing the requirements. So any kind of content that you can get your hands on or any kind of opportunities, that can be something that, just use to learn a little bit more about the domain as well.
Awesome. You also mentioned about soft skills. In your opinion, what are the most important soft skills for intermediate and senior Java developers?
I think communication is the first thing, right? At the end of the day, although again, we are software engineers, we're just like hands on the keyboard coding, but at the end of the day, the products that we are creating, they're going to be used by other human beings, right? So I think communication is one key skill that we need to have. And for us, we are a little bit more on the analytical side as well. So we tend to be very technical. And this is something that for me is going to be like a forever learning in how do I make myself sound a little bit less technical when I'm talking to like business users and try to use more like a business language. So that is definitely one thing. And again, I think I'm always going to try to improve that part just because of the technical nature that we work with. Influence is always something that I always value as well, especially because, again, sometimes when we're technical, we want to go for that Java upgrade, right? So there's a new Java version, let's go for a Java upgrade. And because we want to play with the new functionalities, we want to try it out, and we want to be, we want to use the latest and the shiny new toy that's available on the market. But from a business perspective, why is that important? Like, why do you have to upgrade? How much that's going to cost for the business in terms, for time, effort, and actual like dollar cost. So why should we do that? So, and having that power to influence as well decisions, having the opportunity to be on the table, to participate in making those decisions is something that is very valuable, and influence, plays a big role on that. Teamwork is also something that's very, very, very important. At the end of the day, we are working with several different individuals, and we need to be able to have a good working environment and be able to, communicate with each other and actually do some teamwork. It's amazing when it actually happens. There are many, many other as well, but if I had to say like a top three, that would be my top three.
So you mentioned communication, influence, and
Yes,
teamwork.
and teamwork.
Yeah, those are very important pillars
Yes.
for software developers. So, and this especially influence. This was one pillar that got, at least it was what was said, but got some people fired in one of the previous companies I was working for. So I would like to know, what is your approach to influence the team? Because it's not easy at all. It takes effort, it takes time. So, but I'd like to know your perspective on that.
I'm just gonna take into the context what you said before. It's something that you have to tread a little bit lightly sometimes as well, because when you have like the influence, you cannot just like push your opinions, like let's do that and that's the way that's supposed to be. Again, it is linked also to teamwork. You can say your side of the story, why you think it's important, and also hear each other's opinions, and at the end of the day make decisions based on facts, right? But I think what one of the things that helped the most, I'll just use again the like let's upgrade the Java version or whatever tech, or let's adopt whatever technology that's available for us to play with. It always help when you are showing the value of doing so, linking back to the business case, why that's important to the business. Why would that add value to the product? It's not just for the sake, let's upgrade for just let's upgrade it. You actually need to showcase what's the value for the users, what's the value for the product, what is the value of doing that for the company itself. And having that track of decisions that you have made in the past helps a little bit as well when you're doing something like that. It's not always that you're going to have a win every time when you try to influence, but that plays a big role in it as well. And I think when you have the respect of the team, that says a lot too, because people will trust whatever opinions that you have and might take that into consideration too. But again, it's something that you have to do in a very respectful way and take the context, take the environment into consideration, and not just try to push your opinion on other people. And throughout my career, especially when, again, I think for all those soft skills, right, they are kind of like all connected in a way. Because when you are doing like your teamwork, when you are expressing yourself to the team, saying, okay, I believe we should do this because this and that reason, and the others on the team are also participating and providing their input. You do like a pro con list. It has to be an informed decision. And again, I've changed my mind throughout my career. Whenever I was expressing something to the team, no, but you're not thinking about that. We should think about that as well, and went with each other's opinions, or when they were trying to influence to do something else instead. So it's all about the balance at the end of the day.
It's all about the balance. It's exactly what you said. So you have to be careful to not come across that person that want to push an opinion.
Yes.
That doesn't work. You have to always have the balance and, explain the value, explain
Yes.
why this idea will be beneficial for the business. It's not imposing things. It's about showing the value. Awesome. So you mentioned something that many of my mentees want in their career. They want respect. So what are the actions you take to earn that respect in your job?
It's a very complicated question for a very complicated answer. I don't think that's like a recipe for that, to be very honest with you. But again, I think when you are treating others with respect, you are cultivating a good working environment. Because again, when you're working with different individuals, people have like different upbringings, different education, different backgrounds as well. Each and every one of us, we do have some value that we're bringing to the team. And when we are collectively collaborating, that's when the team actually shines. So again, being very respectful with everybody. And there is a thin line when you're trying to like push your opinion to it, like imposing your opinion, or when you're actually listening to the others, right? So when it comes to teamwork, you have to listen to what everybody else is saying. Again, it has to be backed up by facts, right? Especially when you're making that decision. And that's going to happen with time. It's not like just starting on the team today, tomorrow, everybody's going to be respecting you. You need to have some time to work with them to create rapport with all the team members so they can actually like it's something respect is something that is earned, right? So you have to earn that respect. Of course, that all your like your history, your experience might help with that as well, but it's something that you actually have to earn from the people that you work with.
Yeah, I think one big mistake from many developers is to be arrogant, because it's very common that like when a new developer join a new company, they say, "Oh, this code is horrible. Nobody knows what they are doing." And then like they start
That's a big
suggesting,
mistake. That's a very big mistake.
yeah, that's a very big mistake because they just joined the company. They're not in a strong position to say anything, right? And they start suggesting lots of improvements, and then this person lose respect, and no one will like this person. So I think to earn respect, you have to do the opposite. You have to understand the context. Have to understand, okay, so the code is bad because maybe they didn't have enough time. Maybe they were under pressure. Maybe they had to deliver the product quickly. And that's it. I think the best approach when you're joining the company is to be humble. Even if the code is
100%.
bad, even if things are bad there, because this is an opportunity for improvement, right? But you can't be arrogant and say, "Oh, everyone here sucks and I'm the best." That's the worst approach to when you join a new company, because that will for sure backfire the developer. And like when this developer needs help, it's going to be very hard to get help. People won't like this person. It's going to be hard to get a promotion. Everything is going to be more difficult. So like it's important, like when you're joining a company, just calm down, analyze the context, breathe deeply, and just go slow. Understand how things work. Because
100%.
yeah, because everyone, everyone is learning, right? Everyone
Yes.
is in their learning curve, and just have to understand, okay, this is let me help them, but I want to be arrogant and think I know everything, and the others don't. So
100%. And someday you might be the person that might be like when you don't know the context, right? There's always a reason why something was done in the way that it was done. And someday you might be that person writing that code that 5 years from now, when somebody's 20 is going to judge. So there's always a reason why things are done the way that they are done in the first place. So this I think this is a very valuable lesson to never try to judge somebody else's code that you might seem that is like bad because you don't know the context.
you don't know the context, and even if you see bad code, be respectful and say, hey, you could improve by doing this, and then you would create a friend instead of an enemy.
Yes. And a lot of the times, right, when you try to refactor that code by on your own, there is a very high chance that that's not going to work. You have to roll back everything, just leave the way that it was.
Exactly. So you need to analyze the full context. It's not that simple. Oh, code is bad. No, it's not only that. There is the infrastructure, there is the business, there is the management, there is the deadline. There is so many things going on in a company. So we can't think like in such a small way, like it's just the code. It's not only the code, it's everything, right? So this is an important thing to keep in mind. And you also mentioned about teamwork, and that one is extremely important. How do you deal with conflicts? Because from time to time it will happen, some kind of conflict. There might be that developer that is arrogant, and that unfortunately is very common in our area. Or there could be that developer who is toxic. Like there are developers, I've seen that happening in previous companies I was working for, like developers disrespecting others in a meeting, being very harsh and like for no reason at all, totally unnecessary. So how do you deal with conflicts?
I think there are two sides on this, right? So there is the side as a very technical person and also as a people manager approach here as well. I think for the first one, whenever you have conflict, again, we are technical and we usually are analyzing data. So you just gather the facts, from all the sides, and maybe have a third person that is completely neutral to the situation, present the facts, and have somebody else to make the decision, after reviewing both sides. So that's something that can be used. From personal side, right, as a people manager or as a team member, I don't think that only the manager is the person that needs to provide the feedback. If you are a team member, you can provide feedback yourself, but it's always valuable, especially when somebody is not being respectful in a call or being like arrogant, is just to privately, it's important to do this privately as well, just call the person or meet with the person, let them know, but give the exact example. It has to be a concrete example of that, saying, hey, in this meeting, you've done this. This is how you have behaved. This is not what the expected behavior that we have within this team, with the company itself. And this is what expected of you. This is, this is not the way that it should be behaving. Another approach will be asking the person itself to see if they recognize the mistake. It can be a one-time thing, that sometimes we all have bad days. That's fine, but ask that person to see if that person recognizes. Like, do you feel that you've done anything that can be done better? And in some cases as well, it can also be a case that person is not a good fit for the team itself. And I've seen cases like this where one particular person was having a bad behavior within a team, but then when you change the team, it's working with a different set of individuals. It is a better fit. It is a better match for everybody. And that person had a different behavior. Again, I think as human beings, we're very complicated, right? And when we're dealing with different individuals, it's always complicated because we have our own opinions, we have our own backgrounds, our own, education. And I think respect is like one of those keywords that plays really well, because at the end of the day, you don't know if somebody is going through something. So always showcase respect towards others, because that can take you a long way too.
Definitely. Yeah. And sometimes the person won't be willing to talk with you as well. I like this approach of reaching out to the person first and talking to the person. But sometimes that won't work. The person, for some reason, don't want to face you in a one-on-one meeting. And then in that case, the only thing you can do is to talk to the team lead or the management, because then that's the only way, right? Because this is horrible for mental health, right? Because like as a developer, you want to work in a growth environment. We don't want to work in a place where you are disrespected. We want to work in a place where you feel respected, where you can talk about your ideas, where you can propose your solutions. So otherwise, like when health is being impacted, it's not a good deal, because even if you are paid a large amount of money, if you lose your health, it's not worth it. So
100%.
yeah. So you also mentioned that you had to even take care of the infrastructure. So how was this experience? How do you decide the budget? Maybe that's a very company specific question, but who do you have to deal with? I imagine it must be very complicated to make those decisions. You need to prove that a certain technology will be the best one. How is, maybe you can tell me briefly, how is it? Because I know could be something like a whole discussion only for that, but
So when it comes to software development, right, there are certain costs to the company, to the project itself. One is the running the software, which is the infrastructure cost, right? And it always depend on the architecture plays a big role in it, right? So if you're using on-premises cloud, like the companies, that's going to have a cost. Even though if the company owns the entire infrastructure, that's a cost that you are paying for that as well. You're paying for those servers, you're paying for those virtual machines, you're paying for, the cost that there's probably someone doing all the admin stuff behind it, that infrastructure. So there is one cost. If you're using public cloud, then you get the cost for the public cloud that you're using as well. There is also the cost of software, usually when you are in like enterprise level, there is the cost for license for the database. Maybe there's the cost for the IDE that you use to, maybe the company can negotiate a better, price on the licensing cost for those softwares, depending on the volume and how much they are using it. So all that comes into play. And when you are in like budget season, and usually the head of the business, they will know about all these costs, maybe not exactly on the product level, right? One software, one application, one microservices, but they will know the overall cost for that entire area. So when you are going from year to year and you have to renew that budget, that's something that needs to be a given. Otherwise, you cannot run the application and provide the basic, infrastructure costs. Then, of course, there's also the cost that we cost to the company, right? The company is paying our salary, but it's not only the salary cost. There are like a lot of other costs involved as well on that, So when we are dealing with budget, all that comes into play. And when you want to change the infrastructure, or when you want to completely change the architecture, for example, we're going to go from on-premise cloud to a public cloud, or we're going to go from one premise to a vendor software like a SaaS sort of service. You have to make the business case, right? How much is it costing you right now? So maybe it is costing you, I don't know, 100K a month to run a few services on the premises. But if you move to public cloud, that's going to be $30,000. So again, you have some savings in here that can be a pretty good business case. But then you have to take a look at other things as well, like it's the kind of data that you're running in the software. Can it go to the public cloud? Is it safe enough, or is it safe to keep it on premises? Or if there is a vendor cost, how much that software is going to cost? Is there any support that is involved? At the end of the day, it's all about savings. Now, how much you can save, how much that's going to bring back to the table that maybe you can use to keep developing other functionalities in other products within the same organization, or is something that you're going to be able to bank it, or can you hire a new person to join the team to keep developing other areas? So I think it's the same thing when you are, managing kind of like your own budget in your house.
Mm.
It's sort of the same thing, but in a bigger level, like a little bit more scalable when you're making this kind of decisions. And usually companies, they will have people that are very good at what they do with like managing budget, and then you can work with them to help you on that.
Awesome. I like the analogy. Very simple one. Basically, you make the budget for the things in your home so that things work well, and you also, spend the money under the budget. So very
Yes.
good.
Sometimes you have to invest a little bit to get a little bit more out of it. Sometimes you have to make, when things are difficult, you have to make cuts. Like works the same way.
Awesome. So Loiane, I know that there is a topic that's very important when you are in a big company. So I know that this could be crucial if you are going to get a promotion or not. So, and some people say that this could be one of the main factors for you to get the promotion or not. So, how do you deal with politics within the company? And I know that this is even more important in big companies, right? Because the hierarchy is huge, there are so many levels. So, what is your perspective about politics in a big company? How would you be good with that?
To be very honest with you, it's not something that I personally like very much. I don't think there is anybody that actually like that, right? Sometimes it's a necessary evil. Let's put it like that. But I think that affects you a little bit more the more and more that you grow. When you go to like a very certain, like up to a certain level, that's when it starts to have a big, you have a bit some kind of play in it, right? So I think when you are like a junior developer, mid-level, senior developer, sometimes even as a tech lead, you're not going to have a lot of politics involved in it. At least you should not have, like within your own team, to be very again transparent and teamwork. But once you reach certain level, that definitely comes into play, right? Because people might have their own agendas, things that they would like to achieve, but it's definitely something that you have to tread lightly as well. I've seen people being kind of like burned because of they did not play, or they were playing their own game and it did not work out for them. So it's something that you always have to be careful with. Again, but sometimes it's a necessary evil. I think at the end of the day, as long as you're, again, playing well with everybody, being respectful with everybody, that should take you a long way. And also your skills, the value you're bringing to the table too. But I haven't reached up to that point yet where it's all about politics. I'm still on the level that hopefully that the work that you're doing, it speaks more volume than the other things.
Yeah. And obviously it depends on the company as well.
Yes.
Like in large companies, I think this is almost inevitable. The politics game will arise.
Yeah.
Like the higher you reach, you're gonna have to play this game. If you don't play, you don't
Yeah.
grow basically. And but there are other companies that the culture is different. I remember that Steve Jobs, I think I read that in one of his books. He said he hated politics and he would do everything in his power to not allow that to happen in Apple. I don't know if probably nowadays there is some politics by Apple because Apple is huge, but he would try to cut hierarchy as much as possible in Apple so that this politics game like would be more likely to be played. But like for big financial companies, I think it's almost inevitable. But I think what you said makes sense. Like just be respectful, bring value to the table, and keep doing your job like the best as possible. Don't knock down other people, respect other people. And if someone is trying to knock you down, obviously defend yourself because politics game. Sometimes that happens. And you have to be ready to defend yourself. Have to be, and yeah, that's it. So, okay. So, and one thing that I'm curious. So, I want to know more about your move from Brazil to Florida. Is there a career lesson that you can share with us on this move? How was this move?
I think the it was I've always thought that if you're doing a good job, and this is again, this was my education. I grew up, in a like small town, and I've learned to always be thankful for whatever opportunities that I get and not necessarily go after it like with a lot of like hunger and getting the things done and getting what you want. So I always thought that if you're doing a good job, people will promote you. You don't have to ask for anything. And when I was working in this company and I had like a international team, I always thought I'm going to do a good job. I'm going to have a good performance and they will notice me. And one day they will ask me to move abroad because this is what I want. But the thing is, nobody else knew that. So if you're not speaking up, if you're not telling people what are your aspirations, what are your goals, things might not happen to you. So one thing I had a pretty good, like I had like this amazing manager, a very like nice person, down to earth, and something that you can like speak freely. So one day we were doing like one of our one-on-ones and I say, hey, I heard that, you might start to invest a little bit more in like transfer opportunities. So if there's any kind of position that's opened, please think of me. I'm here and I will like, if there is such opportunity, I would like to be considered for it. And he said, really? I have never known that you like to move. And that was my like eureka moment, like, huh, how can I never said that before? And then he was he was a great mentor and somebody that like also a sponsor, right? The person that believes in you, that gives you the opportunity. So he actually made that happen when the time like took 2 years because of all the paperwork that I have to go through, all the approvals, all the visa and all that stuff. So it kind of took 2 years for the end-to-end process. But that was the most valuable lesson for me in my career. And again, not something that you should ask and think that you are entitled to, right? But it never hurt to ask and make your goals and your intentions clear to your manager, to somebody else within the company. So that was the biggest lesson for me.
That's a very powerful lesson. That's a very powerful lesson. And I have to say that this was my mistake as well. I thought that, oh, if I'm doing a good job, my manager will reach out to me. He's going to promote me. Doesn't happen like that.
I
Like
think
if
it's a
you,
cultural thing.
probably, yeah, because I thought the same thing and maybe I was too naive. But the truth is that we are responsible for our careers and we have to say what are your goals. Because if we don't say it, it seems that you're happy where you are. And then like, it's very difficult. Like how would your manager guess that you wanted that? It's not possible. Can't read your mind. So yeah, that's a very powerful lesson. If you're not vocal on what you want, how can you expect to get what you want? It's
Exactly. And the important thing here as well is that things, they don't happen in one day, right? Some of the things within your career, it's going to take time for you to get there. And that's why I think like the one-on-one conversations with your manager and say, what are your career aspirations, your goals? Telling, hey, in 5 years, this is where I would like to be. And what are the things that I have to develop? What are the things that I have to improve? So I'm in a good shape when the time comes. I might have a chance to make that happen, right? And one other valuable lesson that I've learned as well, and again, goes back to trying the different roles, right? Is when you work for a long time with a certain group of individuals, you might think that you are good at something, you might not realize that you are good at something else as well. And if you're not open to these opportunities, you're not having these conversations with your mentors, with your managers, with your sponsors, with your coaches as well, that there are maybe something else that you might actually like to do as well that you don't even know too.
Yeah, you mentioned another topic that is very important to me. So, how do you see the importance of a mentor in your career? I think you basically said a lot about mentors, but what is your perspective regarding mentors for your career?
Something that I would recommend everybody to try at least once in their lives. Actually, two things: mentors and a coach, right? I don't think coaches that they get enough credit as well. And they are two completely different things, right? A mentor is the person that you aspire to do something, you have a goal, and you're going to share those with the mentor. The mentor will review that with you, and then you're going to talk. And the mentor probably is a person that already has experience, have done that, have been through that already, and it kind of going to give you the recipe, tips, and tricks that should help you get there, right? So, and again, it's a short period of time that you're working with the person, goal by goal, like brick by brick, you can start building your career. So definitely would recommend. It's something that really changed the way that I see my career. And I honestly don't see myself like growing with it to the next step or even trying different things without a mentor. The other thing is a coach. A coach is not somebody that's going to give you the recipe to do that, but it's actually the person that's going to ask you the right questions to make you realize the answers. So when you ask something to a coach is not going to give you the answer. It's actually going to ask you a bunch of questions and make you realize the things that you do. And when I was working as a team lead, and there were opportunities for me to stay technical or maybe try to become like a people manager or still hands-on, but also try out the people manager. I did some work with a coach that the company was providing through a leadership program, and that actually changed completely how I thought about it. And it made me realize things that I did not had realized before. And sometimes, like, I think Bruno, Bruno, Java Man, right?
Yeah.
I think in the past couple of years, I've talked to him like 2 or 3 times when he was here in Florida and we were meeting for like dinner. Talking to him like 30 minutes, he's asking questions, and I'm like, man, I hadn't thought about that. And like a 30-minute conversation, it just makes you realize things and like, okay, yeah, that was like I don't think he even knows it, but yeah, that's what I want to do with my career going forward. So that's definitely plays a very, very big role.
Definitely. Yeah, Bruno is fantastic. Definitely. So, amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really powerful, like to, be transparent with your manager, because your manager is there to help you. It's not, your manager is not there to judge you, like he's to work on your career, right? Work with you in your career, because it's beneficial for the company to keep the developer, to keep the professional. Like otherwise, it's like make the job of your manager easier by telling your manager what you want. Don't be afraid and be transparent.
Yes. And again, it also depends how you approach it. I think it's important not to think that you are entitled to anything,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
it goes back to respect, and again, might be a cultural thing, but that's just the way that I think.
Yeah, you have to understand that depending on what you say, it's going to be a process.
Yes.
So I would recommend to be upfront as soon as possible to your manager, to let your manager know what you want.
Definitely.
Very good. So you started your YouTube channel in 2006. How have you stayed consistent with your YouTube channel for so many years? And you got an incredible number of subscribers, more than 150K subscribers. That's amazing.
Thank you. I started my YouTube channel because all the videos are in Portuguese. And I started the channel because I was writing the books in English back then. It was like 5 years, 6 years within my career. And like people will ask you, like, although we use English like as a default language within the tech industry, people will always ask you if why not publish something in your native language as well. So that's one of the reasons that I've started my YouTube channel. Also because back then it was some sort of like a new platform that was just launching, and there were very like 2 or 3 people that was just posting tutorials in Portuguese. And I kind of like enjoy the content as well. I'm personally like an introvert. I'm not like a people person that likes. And when you are trying to speak at conferences, just sharing a little bit what you have learned, I think recording the videos helped me a lot, especially to try to develop my communication a little bit better in my own language. And there are so many lessons learned about doing that. And it's something that I'm trying to continue to do so I can improve. It's always very interesting to see the new generation, just getting started in these other platforms, also doing videos, and you learn by observing them and things that you can try to improve. I still try to keep my process pretty simple, just a screencast. Sometimes I'm going to turn on my camera as well. Sometimes most of the times I don't turn on my camera. It's just computer, my microphone, and just me talking. But it's something that I've learned to enjoy. And I've been doing this for like over 10 years. So sometimes I do take breaks. I think that's important. Life happens and you need a break, and you need to try a few different other things. And that's completely fine. But I always tend to come back and continue making videos for some reason.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your contribution. Like you're been helping so many people. So
Thank you.
that's awesome. It's rare, quite rare, like for a technical channel to have more than 150K subscribers. It's huge. How
Thank you.
did you get so
Appreciate it.
many subscribers? What's the secret? Tell me.
I don't think that's usually like a secret, right? And again, if you review it over like 10 years, I just try to be myself on those videos. And especially because I like long content form, I tend to publish like trainings, full trainings and courses, and completely free, and not only things that you will just let me just open a book and follow that same, summary, the same topics, but I always try to also add a little bit from things that I've learned throughout my career. Sometimes you have a certain topic, you think, hey, but you're not going to use this in the real life, but instead there is something else that we actually use it. So I think just adding those small tips and tricks along the way, it kind of like helps. And again, just try to be authentic yourself, and there might be other people that might enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I think that's very important to be authentic and just be natural in the videos. And for sure, you're going to create a connection more easily like that. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
And Loiane, you got all the possible highest titles in the software development industry. Well, let's let the Java champion title for the last one. Let's talk about the Google expert title first. So how was the process for achieving this?
I was creating like blog posts and videos for over 10 years before any of those title happened, right?
Mhm.
But for the GDE title, it happened because of one of the trainings that I have, like the Angular trainings. The Google had Angular JS, and then they released Angular, the cousin framework, like an updated version. And there wasn't a lot of content out there in Portuguese. And I was just starting to use at the project that I was working for. And because of all the name, like Google, I kind of like made a bet, like I'm gonna learn this new tool, this new framework. There are opportunities. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that we have within our industry, because there's always a new tool or something. So there's always opportunities for you to be recognized by something that you do, right? So I've
Mhm.
started this training in Portuguese, and I wanted this to be like a full training in completely for free. It was kind of like helping me as well to get into the knowledge gaps that I had on the framework. Because I think one of the beautiful things when you are trying to teach something to somebody else is actually a good learning for you, because when you try to explain something else to somebody, it's when you're actually going to know if you really know something or if you have any kind of gaps within your own knowledge. And so I was going through that process. I had a friend, and I have a friend, not I had, I have a friend. And she mentioned you should apply to the program. And I didn't know anything about that, because especially people were a lot of focus on like Android or cloud, and Angular is like a web technology. And she actually helped me to go through the program as well. And you need to have a referral from another. I think for the majorities of the programs out there, you actually need somebody that's within the program already to refer you to it. And you go through a process. There are a couple of interviews within the process. The first interview is with another GDE as well, just to make sure that you understand what the program is all about. And for the GDE itself, there is a second interview with a Googler. So somebody from the product team. It's actually gonna, again, nothing too difficult. It's not like a job interview or anything, but just make sure that you know your craft. And if you do pass all these two phases, you're actually welcome into the program. And for me, it was really, really nice, because I was going through the process of actually moving from Brazil to the US back then. And I think like a couple of months before I actually moved, I got the title. So it was a very welcome, and I was very, very happy by it as well.
Amazing. What about the Microsoft MVP title?
It happened within the same time frame, sort of. The GDE process took more time than the Microsoft one. I was living in São Paulo back then, and I did present a few sessions at the local Microsoft. There were some meetups that were happening there, so I did present. I was actually presenting at the TDC as well, the Developers Conference in Brazil. And there was a friend of mine, he was saying like, hey, the Microsoft folks were asking like about you, and they just want to see, like, does Microsoft even know that I exist? So again, it was a very kind of like surprise for me to know about all the things, because I was doing content for over 10 years. And somebody from Microsoft actually invited me to apply to the program. Again, for the Angular training that I was publishing, I was using a lot of TypeScript and kind of like embedding TypeScript training into it, and using Visual Studio Code that was very new back then as well. So sharing that kind of like helped with the Microsoft program. And you apply, you kind of share your social community contributions resume, and the product team is actually going to review it as well. And then if they feel that, you're adding some value to the program, then they invite you to be part of it.
Awesome. What about the Oracle Ace program?
The Oracle Ace, there was another program before the Oracle Ace that was called the Oracle Groundbreakers. And it was a friend of ours as well that was working at Oracle back then, and he knew about the program, also invited to apply because of all like the Java content as well. And then I think Oracle kind of like revamped the program, and they've joined forces with the Oracle Ace program that's more towards, I believe, the database. And now they kind of like have this umbrella like database, cloud, like programming languages, all some sort of technology. And then one of the folks that were running the program, the groundbreakers, when they did the revamp, again, they invited to apply to the ACE program, and gladly I was accepted to it. And yeah,
Awesome. What about the Java champion title?
the Java champion title, this was a great news when we were in lockdown, actually. So it's kind of like with everything that was happening. But this one, I was talking to Bruno, right, a lot. And when I started my career as a Java developer, and I always had other Java champions as folks that I was aspiring to be a little bit like them. Not sure if we're going to remember, but there was like the Portal Java magazine in Brazil, and there was also actually the Mundo Java, like the Java World magazine in Brazil, and then the Java magazine as well. And we had like Bruno, Fabiani, Vinicius, Yara. They were writing articles for this magazine. So kind of like the Java rock stars that we had within our country. So I've always looked up to them and met them in conferences as well. And was near like 2020, I've kind of like approached Bruno, like, hey, Bruno, do you think that maybe I would be a good fit for the program? He said yes. And then Eder actually helped me to apply to the program. So I think he made a reference, and then you have to go through like the voting process and all that for the Java champions. And then I was accepted as well to the program. So again, it was a very nice surprise. And it's one of the programs that I'm most proud of, because it's a really like elite community of Java professionals, people that you look up to the industry. I had like authors of books that I was reading, they are part of the program. And sometimes I even pinch myself, like what I'm doing here among all these amazing folks that are part of this community.
You are super amazing, Loiane. We are very lucky to have you in the group.
Thanks, appreciate it, Rafa.
So another thing that I noticed in your career was your transition from senior developer to vice president. And you already mentioned that you changed roles many times. But how was this specific change? Because you being a software developer and then working in a different role where you didn't perform technical activities, how was this change?
So just to clarify, right? So I think these titles of like assistance VP, VP, senior VP, they are very common in the finance industry, especially. And you do have like your job title, and then you have kind of like your rank title as well. So VP in this case, it doesn't mean that you're like a VP of a company, but vice president of the company itself, but just like your rank within the company, your seniority. So for this one, the transition happened when I moved from Brazil to Florida. It's when kind of like I become the VP. It will be some sort of like a staff sort of role. Back then, I was leading a team already. I helped create some sort of like an internal design system for the organization that I was working for. And I had a lot of the product knowledge as well. So I was transitioning from leading one product that was used by LATAM to a product that is being used by Americas, right? So North America, and then a little bit of Mexico, and because Mexico is an entire different world, and LATAM as well. And I was already managing a couple of folks, but that's when I started to actually grow the team and have more people reporting directly to me. And getting exposed to vendor management as well, getting a little bit more of that exposure of the entire application management, all the life cycle. So it was a very good learning from the things that I was used to it, because before I was only used to being a team lead and having the knowledge for one product and actually being able to add more products to my portfolio. That was a great learning, and actually made me realize that the working with technology is not only about coding, right? There's always also other aspects to it as well. So it was a pretty good growth opportunity to prepare me to, take my next steps.
Yeah. So from what you told me, you have a very good macro view of the business of a company, of the infrastructure, technologies, the people. Like, what is your, well, maybe the final goal is a difficult question, but well, I will ask, even if it's difficult, what is your final goal? Like the position you want to achieve in your career?
That's a question that I don't know the answer to
Yet?
it yet. Yeah, because I've always seen myself as a very technical person, even though now, like 90% of my time, I'm not coding, but I'm still very hands-on. I still like to code on weekends. I still have my pet projects. I'm still putting out like technical content because this actually helps me to make decisions in my day-to-day, helps me to like influence things as well if I have to. But it's a different side that I didn't know that if I was going to enjoy it or not. But I figured it out that in one of those opportunities and, talking to my manager, is something that I realized that I always also like to do. So I personally, like honestly, I don't know if my next move is actually gonna be the next step within this particular role, or if it's something that's going to be towards a little bit more technical. And I think there are like it's very interesting as well for your career, especially if you're learning, because if you think about a career growth, it doesn't mean that you always have to be promoted into like your next position. You can do horizontal moves as well. That's also very, very valuable. So you can learn a little bit more about the entire process, having that macro view of how everything works. That can actually help you to move to the next role. Or maybe you're going to find out that you're more passionate about something else along the way that you didn't even know about as well. So I don't discard the possibility of going back to being 100% hands-on, or maybe have like a principal or a staff engineer role. I mean, who knows what the future holds? I do have my long-term goals, like 5 years, 10 years, where I want to be. Not exactly what's the title that I want to have, but in my life in general, what I would like to be doing. But I also don't discard the possibilities of doing horizontal moves as well, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, yeah. So how is your process to make a plan for the next 5 or next 10 years? Because I know this is very important. And that makes a key difference in someone's life or someone's career. So what is your process to do that?
So when you have like a long-term goal, and I've changed mine along the way again, like because before I wanted to be like become a software architect, and I've changed that because I had opportunity to do other things. But now especially where I am in my life right now, I also take personal life goals into consideration along with my professional life goals. Because sometimes when you are like too young, or like beginning of your 20s, you're only focusing on your career. At least that's what I was like. But also take into consideration, where do I want to be when I am 50 years old? What do I want to be doing back then? Or how do I see myself when I am 60 years old? Like, what do I like to be doing? And having that, like thinking ahead, trying to plan small steps. Because again, it's a long ladder. You're not going to get there on the top from, in a month. But what's the next step that I can take that's actually going to help me to get there? And again, I might take a different stair along the way. I don't know. But these are some of the things that I like to keep it in mind. Or, yeah, if again, let me give you an example, maybe, because I think this is too generic, too abstract to people to understand. But let's say that you have a goal of moving abroad, right? You are in your country right now. Maybe you don't speak English, and you like to move to Europe or to Canada, Australia, United States. Doesn't matter. You like to have an international career. That's not going to happen within a month or two. So one of the things that you can do, you can start learning English, right? So you take classes that's actually going to help you to learn English. And maybe your goal is to move to Canada or the United States or to Ireland or to England. And you learn English, and then your next step is to actually get a job as an offshore. You're working, I'm just going to use Brazil as an example. You're working from Brazil to a company that's located in Europe or in a different place. So that can be your next goal. And then if you're still working towards the moving to Canada or to US, for example, maybe there's a very good opportunity for you to move to Germany. So all the things that you have worked towards this goal, it's still contributing to your moving to Germany, because it's still a great country. It's still, great companies there. So have that goal in a very long term, but still make small steps towards it. And that might take, again, different individuals, it's going to take a different time to achieve that. Maybe you're very lucky and you're going to have all that within, 6 months. Maybe it's going to take you 2 years. Maybe it's going to take you 5 years, but don't lose sight of what you really want to achieve at the end of the day.
What is your process to have this level of clarity of knowing what do you want exactly in 5, 10 years? Because sometimes it's difficult to have this level of clarity. Sometimes you are kind of confused. You don't know, oh, should I go here? Or, oh, no, maybe there should be better. Sometimes you don't know exactly with that level of clarity where you want to be in 5 or 10 years. So what is your process to achieve this level of clarity and knowing, hey, in 5 years, I want that. In 10 years, I want this. What is your process for that?
To be honest, I don't really have a process of doing that. I think maturity and experience actually played a big role in this, because I don't see myself thinking the way that I'm thinking right now when I was fresh out of college, right? Because I was in a different place in my life, in my career as well. I was just starting my career. So it was just a matter of survival, getting a job, being able to pay the bills and all those things, right? And I realized that I really wanted to have an international experience and moving to a different country. I think I was like 26, 27 years old. I was actually traveling with my spouse. He had opportunities to travel, and I was traveling with him as well during our vacation time. And it was like, yeah, I really would like to try different things and learn a new language better, being immersed into a different culture. And we were just taking small steps towards that goal back then. And when I was like in my 30s, I had a different goal. Like I would just want to have a little bit more stability in my life. I wanted to be able to buy a house, to be able to, just have a little bit more financial stability overall. And now that I'm very close to my 40s, start thinking about like, how is it going to be when I'm 50? How is it going to be when I'm 60 years old? So I think that helps, again, the maturity and experience, and with the aging process as well, it helps a little bit with that. But I'm a person that I've done like planners, like having like those notebooks that are planners, and you actually sit down on Sunday night and you're planning your entire week, and you know exactly what you're gonna be doing like Friday morning and Friday afternoon. So I've done that for like 3 years in a row, and I knew exactly what I was be doing within the next month. So that kind of level of plan. But then I read some other books as well. And, sometimes having that kind of plan, it's great. It's going to help you to be a little bit more organized and to actually stop and think about the what you want, to write down the things that you want. It actually helps. I don't think people realize the power of actually documenting things that you want, instead of only think, okay, I think I want to, I don't know, I think I want to retire when I'm 45 years old. So when you write that down, when you make that kind of like real, it's very, very different than only thinking about that, right? Again, just an example, not that I'm going to retire at 45 years old. So that's something that is very, very powerful. And it was actually somebody that was mentoring me that gave me that tip. And that made like a huge difference as well. But now, again, I do have my plans, but I keep it open. I'm not like, I know what I'm going to be doing Friday at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and noon. Just like, okay, Friday, I have to do grocery shopping, but my afternoon is pretty clear. So I do have opportunities in case I change my mind and do something else.
That's nice. I like that you have your goals, but you are open to change. Maybe, you know, with your experience and with more knowledge, you might have a different view. And the goals that you thought 5 years ago, maybe you achieve them a lot earlier, and then you're going to have to create new goals. So, but I think still it's very important, this exercise of at least trying to create a plan for 5 years or 10 years. Doesn't need to be the perfect plan, just something. Just, create a draft, create a Google Docs, create something very simple, write it down, even in a notebook. Just start writing it in the most simple way as possible. Because, in 5 years or 10 years, your goals might change.
And this writing down things, I think, really makes a lot of difference, because when you're thinking, even like if you're preparing to discuss your goals with your manager, like what I wanted to achieve this year, it's very different when we have things written down, or even like in a text pad or something. The conversation is very different when you're just thinking about things. You actually you give it some thought, you spend time, and you double check yourself if you actually want to do that or not.
Yeah, that's a very powerful lesson. Like if you put your ideas in reality, it's another whole thing instead of being your mind. If you are in your mind, it's not real. But if you wrote it, it's real. It's concrete. It's something that your subconscious mind see it as a possibility. Whereas if you're only in your mind, you usually are confused. You don't know what to do. So put your plans on paper, make it real. Amazing. So you also have a very nice hobby. I like so much to see your photos on social media. You run at Disney. Such a privilege. How did you get started? And what is the experience of running at Disney? I remember when I was there, it seemed I was in the dreamland. Like everything was perfect. All the attractions were amazing. The fireworks. It was, wow, such a fantastic experience. So can you tell me more about running there? It must be amazing.
It is definitely like an out of this world experience for me. I'm not like an athlete or anything, but I started running at Disney. I actually was watching the videos of one of the influencers that I follow, and she was just spending time with her family here in Orlando. And she was actually doing like one of the challenges. And I say, hey, I've never knew that, Disney was actually doing any kind of runs. And on the following year, when they've opened the registration, I said, okay, I'm just gonna do like a 5K. I can do a 5K. Like a 5K is just a walk in the park. It's something that even if you walk the entire thing, it's going to take you less than an hour. And that's exactly what I did. So I registered, and my husband was also with me, and we woke up like 2 a.m. in the morning, and we were there like 4 a.m. and the races actually start at 5 a.m. And that was like a surreal experience that was very, very, very fun. I've never thought in my life that I would actually say something like, I'm having fun running, or I'm waking up at 2 a.m., or I'm waking up at 5 a.m. on a Saturday or Sunday just so I can get like a long run done for the weekend. It definitely helps a lot with like mental health, physical health as well, of course. And I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about my body as well, the things that my body can do that I didn't even know that it was possible with training. And it's very like beginner friendly as well. So I've run my first half marathon last year. So it was something that I've never would imagine myself doing 21 kilometers of a race
Wow.
for fun. The words for fun, 21 kilometers never would match within the same phrase for me. But community is also amazing. You hear so many great stories, like people that never thought that they will walk again, that they are now like running. You see 90 years old folks finishing a full marathon.
Wow.
There's one guy, I think he's like 92 years old, and he completed like a full marathon. You see kids with 5 years old like doing the 5Ks where the parents or their friends. So it's a very inclusive and very fun environment to be in, and everybody is like just motivating each other. So it's a really fun environment.
Wow, I imagine that the training for the 21K run, it's not easy, right? How long does it take to run 21 kilometers?
The training takes like 4 months, and I did follow the training. So on the Run Disney website, you can download the trainings, and it's completely for free. You know, anybody can do that. And it's actually prepared by an athlete that won the Olympics running. And I think he has the like one of the world records or something. Jeff Galloway is his name. It's a very, very nice guy and always motivating all the runners. So he has one approach to actually mitigate any kind of injury that might happen, which is called the run walk. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm able to do these races, because I don't completely run the entire race. You set intervals, and then you can find out what's the best interval for you. Like you're gonna run for an entire minute, and then you walk in like in a very brisk pace for 2 minutes, and then you repeat that until the race is done.
Oh,
So that
nice.
that really helped me with that. And for the training, it's very incremental. So it's like 3 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week. You start with like a 30-minute walk. You can do a 30-minute walk, right? And then you can walk an entire 5K on a Saturday. And then you continue to do your 30-minute walks or up to 45 minutes. And then every other week, you are increasing the mileage, all the kilometers that you have to do on the weekends up until you actually run the entire distance that you're planning to do during your training. So you know that you're going to be able to complete on the race day, because the mind also is very, very, not the physical part only, but especially for the long distances, the mind plays a very important role in it as well. Just to think that you are capable to do that's going to take you a long way.
Yeah, and the training helps a lot, right? Because then you know what steps you need to take to get there. You're not running suddenly 21 kilometers. If you do that, it's dangerous even to get injured.
Yes.
So, and other than that, you definitely, if you don't believe that you can run a 21K, it's almost impossible to get there.
Yeah. Again, your long-term goal and your small steps to get you there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Like running is So good. So good. Even more in Disney.
It's magical. Every mile is magic.
Wow. Must be amazing. If I were there, I would definitely do that as well.
You should come. You should come and run with us, Rafa.
Yeah, that would be my pleasure. That would be amazing. So going back to technologies, what is your way to stay up to date with technologies? Because nowadays it's very difficult, right? Because we have microservices, we have all the concepts from programming languages, we have AI now, we have blockchain, quantum computing, many big concepts arriving in our tech industry. So, what do you do nowadays to keep up?
There are certain like professionals that I like to follow on my social media because they're always sharing tips, so like X, Blue Sky, Mastodon, whatever people are using nowadays, LinkedIn as well. So that will be one way of just seeing what people are talking about. I also really like the InfoQ roadmap where they show the innovators, early adopters, the early majority. So I think that's always a good thing to keep your eye on and see about the things that you might be interested in learning. Again, with so many things happening, it's going to be impossible to know about everything,
Yeah.
and learn everything. So you have to keep focus and choose one topic or two topics that you like to learn a little bit more about. And then I also like to, watch videos like in YouTube. There's so many great creators putting out content out there as well. So I do like to watch videos and books in case I want to get a little bit more deep into it. And of course, the, technology documentation, the framework or language documentation itself, in case I want to get really deep into that. And I also try to create some pet projects, just try it out to see if something that I'm gonna be enjoying working with. I think that's a very important approach as well, is to actually enjoy the technologies that you work with. I know that they are just tools that we're using to get the job done, but when you enjoy the things that you actually do, I think it just makes it a little bit more fun. So that I think that's about it.
Yeah, and you also share a lot of knowledge. So, and as you said, when you share knowledge, you fill out the gaps, and that's the ultimate way of learning. And that's a way to keep up with technologies as well.
Yeah, definitely. And even because I know that sometimes people, they don't want to publish what they are, working on. I also have a lot of drafts, content in like drafts. I have videos that I have recorded I've never published, blog posts that I've wrote that I've never published as well. And I just, again, it goes back to writing down, making sure that I know, or at least I'm trying to find out if I know about something or not. And simulating that sort of like teaching environment, because I think that you can learn a lot by trying to teach as well. So just give it a try. It's very fun.
Yeah, and like you said, when you teach something, your communication skills go to another whole level. And your communication skills is definitely one of the most important skills that will make you advance in your career. The higher position you get, the more important communication is, because you're going to have to deal with a lot of people. You're going to have to multiply your knowledge. You have to be the strategic person. So, and if you don't know how to communicate, is very difficult, almost impossible.
100%. And the way that you communicate as well, it's a little bit different, right? When you're talking to your teammates, it's one kind of like language that you use. When you have to provide maybe a status update is different. When you want to provide like a broader status, like in an executive level, it's a completely different language that you have to use. So communication is definitely very, very important.
Awesome. And Loiane, how is life in Orlando? Was it always a dream of yours to live in Orlando?
Very funny thing. The day that I arrived at the airport here, when I moved here, was my first time ever in Florida.
Wow.
I've never been to Florida before, but I'm glad this was the place. No, I'm very, very thankful that this was the place where things worked out, because especially of the weather, it's very, very good weather. I know that we have like hurricanes and stuff, but compared to Brazil, it's sun all year long, and I really enjoy Florida. It's a very beautiful place. Great sunsets, beautiful sunsets, and a lot of nature. If you like to go to the beach, you have to go to the beach as well. And yeah.
Very different than Ireland, because most days here are gray with no sun.
But it's a different, I think it's a different environment, right? Like culture is very rich. There is a lot of history, like a lot of beautiful places, castles, and all those things, museums. I think it's a very different environment. I also enjoy that kind of environment too.
Yeah, actually, one of the best benefits of living in Europe is that it's very easy to travel to other countries here. But sometimes I really miss the sun. Like, I wear a t-shirt outside very few days in the year. Like, I can count with my fingers how many days I wear shirts in the year. And shorts, it's usually 1 or 2 days in the year that I'm able to wear shorts here. It's really like most of the days are cold.
Come to Florida, Rafa. We're gonna put you like on those Hawaiian t-shirts, very floral, very like colorful. You're gonna enjoy it.
Oh, I would love it. Yeah, like I miss so much the sun. It's so good. It's so good to be able to, you know, go out and not need to wear many jackets and many layers of clothes. So good. So good. That's awesome. Wow. So, like, what are your thoughts when you first arrived in Orlando? How was the feeling? Because, like, I imagine the experience, like, you were going to Orlando, you never been in Orlando, and it would be the place you would live. How was the feeling?
So we arrived in the Orlando airport, but I was actually going to Tampa, right? So it was like an hour and 30 minutes drive. To be honest, I don't really recall much of that day. I think there was so much adrenaline and so much happening that I was just overwhelmed with everything and like could not believe that things were actually happening. But there are few places that I remember where we like stopped because we didn't have like Google Maps or anything. So we actually have to rent a GPS on the car rental as well. And some parts of it is just like a blackout. But I do remember one of the things. I remember that when going through the interstate, I saw like there is like a giant Mickey head for the power line when you're close to the Disney property. And now every time that I pass through that area, I still remember that kind of day. It was like one of my first memories that I have from moving here, and then on the road to Tampa, arriving at the apartment that we were staying at for like the first month. But it was very, very like surreal, and it was good weather. That it's actually, I think actually in a couple of weeks we're gonna be celebrating 7 years living here in Florida.
Wow.
But I still have very like fond memories of that day, and it's something that, and right, it's sometimes it can be a very difficult decision to move to another country, and you know having to learn basically everything that's very basic from scratch, like how do you make a doctor appointment, how do you buy something, how do you open a bank account, or even like small transactions in a day to day, like how to get a credit card, and all those things. You basically learn how to live for the first time from again, and being away from like your family and your friends. But it's a decision that I don't regret one bit. It's the one thing that I've done right in my life, that was that decision.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah, that's such a big change. And in my case, it was worth it as well because we learned so much. We talked to so many people around the world. We talked here in Dublin. I talked to people from many places in the world, and I would never have this experience in Brazil. It would be very hard. And it would be very hard as well to improve my English if I was still living in Brazil. So, and obviously there is, like I said, the benefit of being easy to travel around Europe, even to the US. To go from Ireland to the US, it's easy as well. So, and it's a good country, it's secure, so there are lots of benefits as well. But like you said, there is a price. We have to pay the price. But in terms of career and life, it's worth it because we can always visit our countries. So
And it puts a lot into perspective as well when you see things from a different approach, different perspective too. So a lot of lessons learned throughout all these years.
yeah, we learn so much and grows a lot faster because when we are in our countries, we just have our culture view. But when we travel, when we go to other countries, to other continents, we learn so much more. And we have exponential growth with this experience, definitely. Awesome. So, Loiane, can you recommend books for Java developers? Could be even like a personal development book, like any book that you think, oh, this book really helped me in my career, really helped me as a person, like any book that would help them.
I think there is one book that I always recommend for Java developers. Not necessarily when you're learning Java. If you are if you're just starting to learn Java, and then you read this book, which is the Effective Java. Yeah, Effective Java. It's just like you learn the language and then you learn how to use it better, how to improve your code. That's my number one recommend. If I had to recommend just one book, that would be the book for me for any Java developer. There is one book that I read recently as well. This is a recent book. It's called the Java Coding Problems. It's a little bit similar to
Oh,
what you do too, Hafa, with the challengers. Not that tricky, because yours are very level hard for me. But
no, it's not.
this book, it has some day-to-day recipes as well, if you will, like how do you create a file in Java, how do you read a file in Java. But it has a few different problems. But what I liked about this book was the author is presenting, okay, if you know up until Java 8, this is how you write the code. If you know Java 8, 11, this is how you write this code instead. And if you know modern Java up to Java 21, this is the modern way of doing that. So in a few different problems, it presents 2 or 3 versions of the source code. So it's very good to as a challenge, to challenge yourself and to actually learn if you still coding as a pre-Java 8 or still coding a Java 11. And there were a lot of APIs that I didn't know that it existed. So it was very, very good learning opportunity as well. So the author is Engel Leonard. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but it's from Pact as well. So that's my most recent read for
Yeah,
Java.
and that's interesting because it's not only you who is recommending this book. Many other Java champions I interviewed before, they gave the same recommendation. So if one Java champion recommending one book, it's a very heavy recommendation. Like if I have more than one Java champion recommending this book, it's because it's a really good book.
Cool. It's very fun as well. I had fun trying some of those problems.
Yeah, Ken also showed the book. He has the book, the physical book. He showed
Nice.
the book in the call, was awesome.
Cool.
Any other books?
I mean, there are so many great books like the domain driven design. It's another great book as well to improve overall design of the code. Refactoring. Martin Fowler has so many great books, right? Like his entire collection. It's so great. It helped me a lot, and his blog as well. There's so many great authors, right? the Java champions, like you have a book, Otavio has a book, Bruno's book on career growth as well. It's a great book too. There's so many great books out there.
Do you know a book for microservices? Because microservices are playing a really important role in our day-to-day jobs. So most of the time, we don't need to code so much
Yeah.
for business requirements, and more we are doing kind of those configurations to make our microservices more scalable or more resilient. Do you know a book that is good for learning that? Or what would be your recommendation for developers to learn more about microservices?
Let me see. Yeah, that one. That's the one. It's building microservices. It's a really good one as well. There is kind of like a cousin book, the designing data intensive applications,
Oh,
especially when you're
yes.
handling like a lot of volume. That's a really good one that goes hand to hand with the microservices part. But I think for microservices itself, right, this is a very interesting topic. There is a lot of trainings out there, like this data intensive applications book. This is a really great book that's going to add you a lot of perspective. But the things about microservices, sometimes when you're learning it, it's a very different perspective when we're actually on the hands-on and putting things into production, and you're actually seeing what works really well with what doesn't work, and how you break down if you really stay on the micro level or if you go to a macro, some sort of like level as well, not like in a monolithic sort of like big application, but smaller modules. So I think it really depends on the scenario, right? It's really hard to say there is like one recipe that you can apply everywhere that's going to work really well. So yeah, but I think you learn a lot, but just implementing and putting things into production and actually learning how it behaves after a certain time on the observability part, resiliency part as well, and how your decisions are shaping what you're actually building and delivering.
Awesome. So, Loiane, what career advice would you give to Java developers who want to advance in their careers?
So I think we've talked a lot about like hard skills, soft skills today, right? So I think depending on where you are in your career right now, if you are just getting started, you are like a junior developer, you're probably focusing a lot on your hard skills and just trying to know your craft, just building and getting experience. But when you're starting to grow, when you get into like a senior position, like a real senior position, or like a tech lead or even like staff engineer, this is where soft skills really come into place. So even if you are starting right now and you're mostly focusing on hard skills, start building up your soft skills too, like your communication, your power of influence, teamwork, right? And just working with different individuals. Because at the end of the day, we're building software, but it's all about people, right? You're building software because somebody else has a problem and you want to resolve that using technology. So that goes a very long way. And especially if you are like in more senior positions, like a specialist or a staff and a principal engineer, try to get on a lot of the domain knowledge because that can be a big differential, right? So when you are hiring and you have two great resumes, like hard skills are the same, soft skills, they seem about the same as well. But one person really knows the domain and one person has, you know, experience with the different other domains. The preference will be for the person that already knows because there is a lot that you learn about how to handle things and how to design systems that books will not teach you, and you're only going to be learning when you're actually working with it. And that also depends on the different domains that you work with on the industry as well.
Awesome. Loiane, thank you so much for your time. It was amazing. You shared so many valuable insights that I learned a lot, and I'm sure that you, Java Challenger, also learned a lot, right? So thank you so much, Loiane. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having me here, Rafa. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, Loiane. See you next time then. Cheers.